Before I start my story, I want to acknowledge the country. I am very grateful to the oldest living culture who honor and share this land. Indigenous knowledge systems are vital parts of the knowledge capital of Australia. This video will be divided into three parts, including my own cultural background, my experience with the first Australians, and my observation of indigenous culture. I am an international student from China. As a Chinese, I never thought that being an indigenous citizen is a problem. On the contrary, this is something to be proud of. China is a country consisted of 56 different nationalities, and there are also many different regional cultures. People will speak their own language, eat their own special food in their city. Everyone is proud of their own culture and language. I have only had 2 contacts with indigenous people. The first time was in the classroom. When the teacher talked about the closing the gap policy, he invited 2 students to share their views about the policy. When they were discussing the policy, they think that although this policy wants to help them improve their quality of life and achieve social justice, it didn't really think about what they really need. In fact, for first Australians, the right of self-determination is an indispensable part of their social justice. They need to have right to determine their own lifestyle, and their lifestyle need to be acknowledged. Another time was an indigenous performance that I saw in the zoo. Actors had white lines on their face. 2 of them were playing instruments, others were dancing. After the performance, one of the actors also drew a white line on my face. When I reflect this experience again, I believe that this line is a kind of connection between us. In indigenous cultures, there are no strangers, and we are all connected in some ways. Their bare feet dancing on the dirt also made me feel their love for the land. However, it is difficult to find indigenous culture in real life. I have lived in Australia for about 5 months. I have never seen anyone dress indigenous clothes and speak indigenous languages. I even can't find any indigenous restaurant near my neighbor. There are mainly 3 reasons for the invisibility. Firstly, as a Chinese, I don't understand indigenous culture very well. Therefore, even indigenous cultures are in front of me, I may feel difficult to tell. Secondly, Australia is a multicultural country. There are many people from different countries living there, which makes it harder to identify indigenous cultures. Lastly, Western culture is more dominant in Australia, and the history of first Australians is a history of aggression and resistance. When the first Australians are one of the subordinate groups, their culture will become more invisible. Even though it is hard to find the indigenous culture in real life, we can also see the efforts in protecting the indigenous culture, such as the performances in the zoo, the collection in the museum, and we can also find indigenous flags in many different places. However, the indigenous culture should not only be performances and exhibitions. We need to experience indigenous culture, join their dance, taste their food, and acknowledge their lifestyle. In this way, indigenous culture can go beyond exhibitions and performances.